Good morning, everybody. Put myself in do not disturb mode here. I am just having a heck of a Wednesday. As you can hear, the allergies are vibrant. I know I'm not the only one. My entire family is dealing with seasonal allergies right now, which is new for them. So fun, right? I'm excited to be here this morning, though, despite a tired sounding voice, despite all the things that could be going on, because I'm bringing an author to you guys today named Rebecca Galli. She's been writing for 20 plus years, longer even, and she has overcome and survived and lived resiliently through so many losses in her own life that she's actually written 2 books, and I'll bring these up on the screen again. Her first was called Rethinking Possible. It's a memoir of resilience. And the second is called Morning Fuel. Look at this. Look at this intentionality, right? This is a daily book of inspirations designed to bring us into a healthier space in our mind, right? Before we start our day. And so those of us who have gone through seasons of practices where we have daily devotionals or daily journal practices or daily moments of just reflection before we get started every morning, will understand the importance of that practice. And certainly that's something I've been good at in certain seasons and less diligent with in others. And I think right now is a perfect time in this world where we are living and what we are living through is the invitation. It's the fertile ground to start going into and toward a daily practice of tending ourselves, tending our grief, tending our mental space, our emotional space, our physical space, and our spiritual space as well. And so I'm just very excited to talk with Rebecca today about what might be going on in her life that she can impart some wisdom to for us, and certainly talk about why these 2 books are going to be something that could be beneficial for you. So give me a moment and I'm going to bring her on. Let's see. I think we're getting it here. There we are. Hi, Rebecca.
Hi.
How are you this morning?
I'm good. I'm experiencing something new.
Yeah,
Haven't done
inspired
this
for
before.
something, huh?
Yeah, I've done a lot of podcasts, but this is new for
Yeah.
me. So
It's just
thanks
like
for
a
the
live
growth.
podcast.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a live podcast. We can't edit our errors. We can just say like, "Oh, that's not what I meant to say," and we move on and hope for the best.
That's great. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to do my phone here. But
Yeah,
anyway, hope let
absolutely.
me perch up in my wheelchair a little bit so I can see you and you
Okay.
can see me a little bit.
Yeah.
There we go.
Perfect. There's your beautiful face. Well, thank you for being with me this morning. I've been just so impressed by the intentionality and the breadth of your work. Like this, there's no small thing to not only sustain a practice for yourself of daily intentionality and sitting down for like what we might call a quiet time, but to put together a book with that many days as for every single day, a chapter, a section, an invitation for every day. It's not as easy as people might think it is.
Yes. It took a lot of time to it, and more than I'd written a lot. You know, I've been writing since my paralysis in 1997. I had started through journaling, and it became a newspaper column and then a memoir. And so I had a body of work on my website. I had like 400 columns that I had
Wow.
published or written. So I thought, oh, that's a piece of cake. Just go pick out 365 of them and plop them in a book, and there you go. But it's a lot more complicated than that. There was
Yeah.
repetition and crediting different people that I quote and introducing family members. So I tried to be thoughtful about it, but it took a lot longer than I had planned. Let's just say
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, yes, I am right there with you. I have lots of little pieces, and I always think I need to pull a 5 minute chat topic or something from something I've already explored, something I've written through that I want to go back to. And yes, repetition, because we are who we are, right? And we have themes that we carry through our lives. But secondarily, just the overwhelm of trying to make a cohesive narrative and make it make sense to someone else when we wrote it in disjointed pieces of our lives in different seasons. And it's an editor's playground nightmare,
Yeah.
both. I'm not quite certain.
I, I
Well,
I wound up doing spreadsheets for it, which I thought, what does the spreadsheet have to do? But this is the only way I could resort and keep things keep things orderly. So I am not a spreadsheet gal, but it was useful, so I
yeah,
did it.
that makes sense. I can appreciate that. Well, you alluded to it a little bit. What in your life made you decide that grief was what you wanted to approach, that you needed to start working toward this storyline of resilience and writing around that? Because it's not a common area that we all want to go to until we've gone through something that it feels more necessary.
Yes. Well, I've unfortunately had a lot of uh, tough things to navigate through. And the first was when I was 20 and I lost my 17-year-old brother in a water skiing accident. And my dad gave me some very wise advice, which was you can talk it out, work it out. You somehow have to get the emotions out. And journaling came very easily for me to just try to get the swirling thoughts on paper
Mhm.
and out of my head, and to really capture that, because I think what I learned then and all the other episodes of deep grief is that you have to be honest about your feelings before they can get manageable,
Yeah.
and you just have to figure out the best way to do that. So it was with my brother, and then my 20s were pretty great after that. Married the man of my dreams, had 4 children, but two of them had special needs, one with epilepsy and a degenerative disease along with that, and then my daughter with autism. And that was its own kind of grief, especially an innocent grief like that, where they didn't do anything. My brother wasn't looking where he was going, but they didn't do anything. So life kept rolling on. So I can talk about the others, or we can get to them when you want.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think that that's a great just overview of recognition that, to your point, there's a different flavor of grief, a different type of grief that we experience in any situation where our expectations of life have shifted, where they change and it's not quite what we saw coming. And I feel like even the belief that we can see something coming is almost just naive at best, because we
Right.
have so little control and certainty in this world to hold on to. And I think your acknowledgement of your dad's advice of just becoming honest about your feelings and getting them out of you is that beautiful invitation into metabolizing them and recognizing, like, the longer you carry this, the heavier it becomes.
That's a great way to put it. I've not heard that, metabolizing it, but that's exactly through exactly what you need to do is, I think it was Robert Frost that said the only way out is through. And through is an important word because it's an active word. It's not a sitting in it
Mhm.
too long. You can sit in it, but give yourself a timer on that. That's what I've had to do
Yeah.
in various instances. And when you move through it, you're actively choosing, how you're going to manage it, not let it manage you.
Hmm. So your memoir along those lines, Rethinking Possible, came out a few years before the most recent book. How did that book help you begin to move through things? And again, or moving on past that, like, how did Morning Fuel serve as the next reasonable step for you to help yourself, but also to bring others along for the journey to move through things?
I think that was a big turning point for me when you take a lot of your writing and you take your life's timeline and you try to look at it through a lens of a narrative, and the editors were very specific about, it has to have a narrative arc. You have to keep the reader moving through your life. And so when I looked at that, and the theme, the overarch, the thread, so they call it, is the power of love over loss. And so as I looked through these different losses that I had, my brother's death, my, epilepsy, autism for my son and daughter, and then as a result of that, I was divorced. And so that was another kind of losses, and to try to move through that. And then 9 days after that, I was paralyzed by
Mm.
this transverse myelitis. So it affects 1 in a million. A third of people recover. A third have partial, and a third have no recovery at all. So that was another kind of loss, a physical loss, where I had a lot more limitations. But in the memoir, I was able to take each one and see kind of what I learned from it that I could bring forward. There was always a process, which is always about being honest with your grief, like we talked about before, and then that's your not only your feelings about it, but what are your resources to help you move through that. And I call it, who's in the boat with you, who can help you move through this loss. um, People that can listen. There might be professionals. You may need counseling. You may need medication. You may need therapy. All of these are resources that I pull in and out of the boat, as depending on which adversity is right in front of you. Um, but the memoir gave me a chance to look at my whole life as a narrative, and really work in the details that help nurture this theme of the power of love over loss.
Mm.
And it also gave me a chance to publicly speak about these losses in a way. I've been doing it online or in print, but when you face an audience in a book talk and you have to talk about them, it's a whole different way of connecting with that grief. And you read people's faces and they ask questions and you see what resonates. And in a way, that was very energizing for me, because I got to share how I got to share my losses and then see how it was helpful to others. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that was a big discovery for me, that like if I've got to live this crazy life, it might as well talk about it and have it serve as good for someone else.
Mm. I think that that's a really beautiful reflection too of recognition of the love within your life, alongside and in spite of losses, however you want to say that. Because what I have encountered in myself and in and in clients and family members and friends is love almost takes a back seat because the pain is so significant, rather than recognition of love being the rationale behind the pain. Like when we break a toy we don't care about, we aren't really affected by it. When we lose the stuffy we've held precious to our hearts since we were born, something is broken and feels really lost and unrecoverable. And I think that that love of the person or the thing or the experience that we've lost, needing to be more centered, is permission to feel the way that we feel, is permission to say, I don't know what to do next. I don't know necessarily what resources I have at hand, because the overwhelm of the love that I feel and the loss and the impact of it are too much to navigate right now.
I, Absolutely. One of the morning fuel entries I have is about grief, and the quote I use is, it came from a WandaVision of all things
Yeah.
episode, but it's, what is love? What is grief but love persevering?
Yeah.
And it's like that is so true. When I look at why am I sad, it's because you miss that person. There's this presence of the absence that's with you as you move through life. And what would that person be doing with you, or what would I be doing if I wasn't paralyzed, or or,
Mm.
if I were married, and or if I had my brother now at this age. There's all those kind of what if things, but they're generally centered on wanting that piece you've lost back with you because you love that piece.
Yeah, that piece was integral to your who you were, who you are. Okay, I want to talk about Morning Fuel because
Yeah.
this book is beautiful and I highlighted so many different things through it. And I'm like, okay, picking just one or two quotes was very difficult. So I'm just going to give you one of them that I really liked and ask you about it. You wrote, "Today you are precious and rare and awake. Ask what you need to know now. Say what you feel now. Love what you love now." And I feel like it's such an invitation into the present moment, that statement, that recognition of you have no control or predictability in this life. As hard as it is to hear that, as devastating as it feels to come to a place of acceptance with that, the reality is we can only process what we're willing to face, and we can only hold on to what we keep in front of us. And admit, hey, we want this in front of us. I love this piece or this person, and I want to be around you as much as possible. And I'm just curious, if in your own world and in your work here too, how can embracing the idea that every moment is precious and rare transform our approach to grief? Because precious and rare time is the one thing we never get back. And we know this, and we can say this 100 times in our face until we're blue in the face, but it doesn't really settle in as truth until we recognize, oh, I've missed something. Regret gets loud. How are you, and how does your book help address? Like, yes, regret is a thing, but we don't have to remain in that place.
Hey, well, thank you for that question. It's something I struggle with, especially if either the past is haunting or the future is uncertain. How do you focus on the present? And I think one of the reasons I wrote Morning Fuel was to start your day in that kind of positive present mindset,
Mm.
that this is a reading for today, that this is what I can focus on today. And then I get really practical, what around me can I appreciate? And I love my yard. Spring is a great time. You can go out and see something that was there today that was gone, wasn't there the day before. And it might not be there the next day, just depending on the weather, the crazy weather we've been having. My tulip tree bloomed. I'm glad I enjoyed it and took a picture of it that day, because the next day it was 28 degrees and it shriveled up.
It's over now.
Yeah. So I think that just being aware, looking around in awareness, whether it be the person you're with or something that strikes you that you've read, the highlighting is a great way to connect with the page in a way that's memorable. Um, so it's a good daily practice, and one I have to remind myself of, especially when calendar gets full and the time
Yeah.
gets squished.
Well, I was just going to ask that when in a normal season of life, and I say normal very, very loosely, when we're not dealing with really disruptive experiences, our calendars and our schedules become pressured, and even our morning times. I mean, I have a child and I have a business, and I'm on the go all the time, and I tend to be the person I put on the back burner. So, out of curiosity, how has this process, even working with your own book, your own writing in Morning Fuel, encouraged you and reminded you to reprioritize and maybe even simplify so that you do have the ability to focus on what matters to you the most, even when other things matter and all of these things are moving on around us?
I think I just I've been a little patient with myself. I try to be patient with myself when I feel this pressure to, oh, I didn't do the reading when I wanted to, or oh, I didn't, take that time out. So my sister and I have this thing about kind of have you started your day yet? And it can be 12
Mm.
noon, or it could be 3 o'clock, or it could be 5 in the morning. It just, you just to take that time out for yourself, and when you can, and not have this, I'm a big believer in structure and routine, because I think we miss what we do regularly. It becomes a habit, and then you don't do it, you just feel a little off. So I've had my morning fuels at 9 o'clock at night, but I felt like I got it in, and I just gave myself that little refresh boost. Uh, so it's a I think you have to read your life and see what's
Mm.
reasonable for you to do, so that that pressure isn't too much. That it is a positive thing in your life and not something that you dread or feel like you've got to check a box.
I love that because in different seasons of my life, there's been so much pressure to
Yeah.
learn, to evolve, to grow, to change, to mature, whatever you want to label it as. And the idea that you have to do it first thing in the morning, too, there's a lot of pressure to that. And I think people wake up having maybe not even slept well, or maybe having slept really well and not wanting to get out of bed and feeling like now you must go and take on these tasks and check the boxes before you can go forward in your day. Sometimes I wake up late and I have to rush out the door. And that doesn't mean that I've missed the window of opportunity to find some grounding and encourage myself. That means I'm shifting the grounding and the encouragement to another part of my day when I might need it even more. I think that alleviating that pressure is incredibly important. How have you um, seen a benefit of letting your morning fuel move on to other times of your day?
Well, to your point, I think that the question I always ask myself about when I'm getting ready to do the next thing, I like for number one, it to be the next right thing to
Mhm,
do, the next right thing to do, and to that end, I say, what's the most important thing?
mhm,
For me, my most important thing is my health. I can't do anything if I'm not healthy.
mhm,
And so that is about sleep, and it's about nutrition, and it's about taking care of my body, and it's about those kinds of things. And whatever's the most important thing at that moment, I give myself permission to delay something that I know I'd like to do, but it's not the most important thing to do.
mhm.
And so that's kind of how I get the priorities of what's the immediate next
Yeah.
thing.
I'm curious what message you would want to pass along to people who are listening about their own experience of life. I know for me, when I was going through the death of my mom in 2016, my quiet time was the last thing on my mind. Being very still, being very present, it was impossible for me to slow down. And that part of that is my structure of my life and who I am and how I go about things. But at the same time, those quiet times get really loud because there's a lot that we're avoiding and a lot of things that we don't want to face when we're dealing with tragedy and when we're dealing with ongoing losses. So, what is one piece of advice you have found in your life to be so useful that you could pass along for someone who is maybe at the point of saying, like, okay, I've strong armed myself through this as much as I can. I've gripped the steering wheel until I'm white knuckled as much as I can. Now I need to find some resilience that doesn't come from a perfect series of books, that doesn't come from the perfect podcast that I find, although they exist, I'm sure. Um, but really that sense of self that is deep within us, even when we're dealing with tragedy.
So how do you find that deep sense of self? Is that what?
Yeah, what would you, how did you find that sense of self, even though you dealt with ongoing, like complicated and continuing losses?
I think it's back to my three things I like to do, which is be honest about how I'm feeling, what my resources are, get good people around me. And then the third is the most important for me, and that's to keep moving,
Mm,
just to keep moving, not isolate in it, not be overwhelmed by it, but find something to do that helps you move forward. And I think getting those, working through whatever we're feeling with people who care about us is very important.
mm,
And we have to take that message of I'm taking care of me.
mhm.
And to do that, these are the things I need to do.
I like that a lot. And I think the idea of moving forward has to also come along with the reminder that stillness is movement. Being still in ourselves means we're allowing other things within to move to the surface and to really become the focal point instead of relying on action taking and accomplishment as evidence that we've been moving toward ourselves or toward a different future, but just allowing for stillness to be the thing that says like, oh, this is what actually would be a major priority for us in those moments too. Because I mean, I don't know about you, but there have been times when I think about what I need, what I'm feeling, what I want to do, what makes me feel good, and my mind just goes blank. There's so many other things on my brain, or I'm so used to focusing on other people or other circumstances, or for me, problem solving and fixing what is broken, that I just get very disoriented. So I think stillness too, and certainly that goes right along with your work, Morning Fuel, to just take a moment to recognize, all right, what is moving forward and what does that mean to me? Because it's going to mean something different for all of us too.
I I think that's very true, and I sometimes I'll even create a distraction, whether it's listening to a podcast, reading a different kind of book, listening to a book,
Hmm.
just do something to knock me out of whatever rumination that I've gotten stuck in, because that can
Yeah.
happen when there's a lot of stillness.
Yeah.
But and I think you need to know the things that energize you. If it's funky music
Mm.
or flowers or a cup of strong coffee or a decaf tea, or so to know your favorite go-tos that'll kind of are mood boosters, and
Yeah.
hopefully morning fuel can be that too.
Can
It's
be
just a
one of the
random
tools.
one. Yeah.
I love it. Rebecca, this has been such a joy. Thank you for making time to speak with me. And anybody who's listening, this will be available on my wall. So you can, of course, continue to return to it and gain some more insights because Rebecca is clearly full of them. I wish we had all day to talk and pick your
Oh,
brain more. Your book is available, Morning Fuel, right here. It's backwards because my camera's backwards, of course, but this book is beautiful and it is full of wisdom and insight. And frankly, through full of invitation to become a version of ourselves that we are striving for, but also in a way that is restful and restorative in process. So I hope if you're listening that you'll pick it up. And Rebecca, thank you so much for being here with me.
well, thank you. Thanks for having me. Great to spend time with you.
Yeah, you as well. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks.